mental health in football, specifically in players. Why is this topic even important? Various studies involving mental health in football show that elite players have much higher depressive symptoms compared to the general population. This slide in particular has an image showcasing Gareth Bale, who is reacting to being booed by his own fans in his own stadium while playing for Real Madrid. Let's start from the very top. The football academies, which enroll young children to become prodigies and form them into first team players. One can only imagine the immense pressures that these children are under to perform, whether it's from their family or academy in terms of external pressure, or even pressure from themselves, such as to achieve their dream or to fulfill their talent. This could even also be in the form of a result of an injury or burnout from the intense and relentless competition against their teammates and often childhood friends. Various academies have shaped football to what it is today, such as La Masia. There is also Ajax's academy, Benfica's academy, multiple academies all over the world. However, one cannot neglect the fact that rejection or release from these academies can be very costly and traumatic to the player that is being released. 18-year-old Jeremy Wisten ended his life in 2020, a year after he was released from Manchester City's academy. What was really shocking was that Manchester City's sports psychologists had actually carried out a mental health screening for Jeremy, both pre and post his informed release, and noted no concerns over his well-being. I'm not trying to blame or point fingers in this situation. However, I'm trying to perhaps signal that this aspect of the academy, of the very start of a footballing career, is something that needs more psychological investment. A documentary that I highly recommend if you're interested in this is Inside Hale End. It's about the under 15 and under 16 squads of Arsenal, managed by Per Mertesacker, which is a pretty interesting series. It's approximately 6 episodes. It can be found on YouTube. Also, one interesting little tidbit was La Masia is actually translated to the farmhouse. Just an interesting little conceptualization of how youth football and prodigies are treated as sort of like a factory or an assembly line. We can see Vinicius Jr. Crying after he was injured in a Champions League game against Ajax. We can see Richarlison clearly facing turmoil after the immense pressure he was in, not only from fans to perform, but even himself and his internal pressures. We can see Saka missing a penalty, possibly signaling potential burnout, as well as the root cause of, I would say, a lot of his confidence issues in the future. So, issues with mental health and how one responds to mental health can either make you, such as in Vinicius Jr.'s case, with his resurgence and subsequent UCL victory, or break you, such as in Roberto Baggio's case, where he missed a World Cup final penalty against Brazil, and is now known as the man who died standing. A big issue and barrier to seeking help and treatment is the stigmatization of mental health. There's already a big stigma for the general population. So for footballers who are practically living on the big screens and newspapers, this stigmatization is almost magnified. The Players Tribune, which is a media platform that publishes first-person stories from professional athletes, is a great solution, in my opinion, to this barrier, as it allows athletes to transparently talk about their problems with mental health. I'll just read out Adriano. This quote, it's pretty powerful. So he says, "What happened to Adriano? Brother, it's simple. I have a hole in my ankle and one in my soul. The hole in his ankle obviously is referring to his physical injuries on the pitch, and the hole in his soul is most likely referring to passing of his father, which subsequently led to Adriano resorting to alcoholism and a slippery slope in terms of how his career has materialized. The support and the outcry for mental health is very, very selectively experienced. What I mean by this is every time mental health has been talked about or has been made a big deal, it's either flooded with an influx of support or just ridicule by fans. As we can see, Dele Alli, who was the butt of many jokes, has after his interview, he's received so much support, which is great. I'm extremely for that. But it also paints other players who didn't receive this support in sort of an undeserving light. Such examples would be Alexander Pato, Jadon Sancho, which still remains as a controversial figure. So yeah, again, just to emphasize, support for mental health is selectively experienced, and this topic, this issue, would be a lot less of an epidemic if we treated every single player like the human that they are. In terms of future directions that peer-reviewed research has pointed us towards, one study has cited MBSR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction programs, as a potentially effective intervention in terms of reducing symptoms of stress, anxiety, depression, and a general increase in psychological well-being. While currently CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, is the treatment of choice for sports psychologists, it's a good sign to see innovative treatments make its way into the mental health footballing realm. Players experiencing stressors such as life events, injury, or surgery should be closely monitored in the expectation that these events may predict the subsequent development of psychological morbidity. Players that are maybe injured or maybe had a traumatic life event such as a divorce, death of a loved one should be treated more sensitively and monitored, right? An article just looking at how the success of La Masia came to be. So one of the questions that was posed was, how does La Masia ensure that young athletes are psychologically developed? And how is this aspect of development taken as serious as physical development? So the key things that I took out of the response was that all of the players living in La Masia have a mentor and access to a psychologist who profiles them as soon as they join. And if they detect a problem, they can address it immediately and implement an ongoing strategy, just as they would if it was a physical issue. This is incredibly important. Treating mental health just like, a physical injury is incredibly valuable in destigmatizing mental illnesses as a whole. I also found that in terms of a long-term injury, closely working with the psychologist and the player, I believe that's also a very, very great intervention, because when a football player gets injured, it takes away their meaning. A football player has trained their whole life to be out on that pitch. Most of their friends and close relationships are their teammates. An injury takes them away from all of that. Of course, they would have depressive, anxious symptoms, right? They could probably even be scared that they might not be able to reach or improve from their previous form pre-injury. Just a few research studies about where mental health in football currently is. These are my references. If you would enjoy any further reading. Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Let me know if you enjoyed this kind of content, right? Which is more informative, more investigative. Thank you guys for listening again. Yeah, hope you guys have